So over the past few months, I have been building my SaaS web application. It's called Dinnerbee. It is a way for couples, roommates, anybody who lives together to effectively plan their meals throughout the week. And I've been documenting that entire process here on YouTube, which has been really fun. And if you're watching this video right now, Dinnerbee is live. Which is really exciting. I'm really happy that I was able to finish this application. And now that Dinnerbee is live, I also have the opportunity to make this video, which is going to be about the entire tech landscape of this application. It's nothing too crazy, I would say, but there are some interesting things in terms of what technologies that I decided to use and how they all kind of work together to create this full application. So that's what I'm going to go over in this video. I do want to preface by saying that if you are building a SaaS application or just any kind of application, do yourself a favor and don't agonize too much over the decision of what technologies to use. My recommendation is always going to be pick whatever you know the best and is going to get you the best result, either if that's you're trying to build fast or you're trying to learn a new skill. Choose what you're comfortable with or whatever is going to help progress your career. So for myself and the technology choices that you'll see throughout this video, these are things that I work with on a daily basis in my career as a software engineer, or things that I've worked with at previous companies, or technologies that I want to continue learning and getting better at so that I can continue progressing my career and stay relevant. So with that being said, I'm going to make my face smaller and we're going to get into all of the technologies that make up Dinnerbee. And so I'm going to start here on the back end. And as you can see, I am using Spring Boot as my framework for my backend technologies and Java as the language that powers all of that. So Spring Boot is really nice. It's something that I've worked with in my career and just a framework that is very popular. Is never going to die. It's always going to be around. So this is something that I just want to continue getting better at. And it allows me to really easily connect to any kind of database that I'm working with. I'll get into that in a moment. And also expose REST APIs that will be eventually consumed by my client application. So speaking of databases, I'm using PostgreSQL as the database that backs this application. Again, Postgres is something that I've worked with throughout my career and something that I will probably continue working with as long as I am a software engineer. I'm working with very highly relational data in this application, so something like Postgres makes a lot of sense. Like I said, Spring Boot connects and interoperates very well with Postgres. Being able to set this up takes like 5 lines of configuration code, so it's really no problem to get that all set up. And then also using some of the interfaces that come out of the box with Spring Boot, you're able to write pretty complex queries without actually having to write the queries, which is pretty cool. And then you also have the flexibility to write the full queries yourself. So that is the backbone of the back end of my application. It is a Spring Boot server with Java and then Postgres as my database. Now, in terms of how these things are hosted, I am using Heroku as my means of hosting both of these servers. They're hosted separately, and the reason that I chose to use Heroku here, Heroku is a platform as a service, so it essentially extrapolates a lot of the more technical or big decisions that you have to make when you're hosting on, for example, AWS. So these two separate deployables are hosted on AWS infrastructure, but Heroku extrapolates a lot of the complexity that comes with that hosting away from you as a developer, and you can kind of just pick a few different settings and then you're up and running. So literally to host both of these things, it takes like 5 minutes each. The benefits of that cannot be overstated if you are a solo developer and you also, I'm not a cloud developer, so I don't spend a ton of time in AWS throughout my day-to-day, like setting up resources or anything like that. So I know for myself, picking something like Heroku, I'm going to save a ton of time, and I'm also going to save a ton of money, because if you're building things and setting up resources inside of AWS, there are so many configuration options. So even if you have some kind of knowledge on all the options, most likely you're going to end up over provisioning your resources and spending way too much money. It's like the application that I have here is not bringing in a ton of traffic, so I know that I don't need a ton of resources in order to host this thing. And so even with the AWS default options, I was going to spend way more money than I would if I'm just hosting on Heroku. And to break that down a little bit more, I do have a whole video that's talking about hosting, so I'll link that above. But I am just paying $5 a month to host my Postgres server and $7 a month to host my Spring Boot server. So $12 a month to get this completely hosted, and it took about 5 to 10 minutes of work. And if you're interested at all in what Heroku is doing under the hood, the Spring Boot server is hosted on EC2, and then the Postgres instance is hosted on RDS. Okay, moving on. Now we have, like I said before, Spring Boot allows me to really quickly create REST APIs that I can expose to my client application. So this is kind of going to be going over all of the different services that I have exposed for my client application that I need to run this entire application. I will mention, it's kind of probably pretty small, but in terms of design principles, I am a huge fan of domain-driven design, and that's what DDD stands for. So that is kind of the approach that I took when building my backend. So there is a big concept of entities inside of this application. That is kind of the framework that I try and use when structuring my project and thinking about the data that is inside my application. In addition to all of the like entity-specific endpoints, I also have a number of different services and kind of application flow that exists as part of these REST APIs. So the first is a way for users to authenticate inside of my application. And so Spring Security is a module inside of the Spring Boot framework that allows for different types of authentication methods. And so for myself specifically, I'm using JWT authentication. So this creates a bearer token that I'm able to give to a user once they log in or create an account or something like that. And then all requests that come into my server need to provide that token in order to successfully perform that action. And you can do cool things here like provision refresh tokens as well. If their access token is going to expire, you can create processes to revoke all access tokens for all currently logged in users if you had some kind of security incident. And so yeah, definitely a very powerful module. And it's not just limited to JWT authentication. You can also use OAuth or social logins. I haven't messed around too much with them, but JWT authentication works really well for me and my use case in this application. Moving on, I have an email service that I'm exposing as well. And this one isn't too complex, but pretty much every application is going to have some kind of a need to email users. And so I have a couple different flows throughout the application that require me to send emails to users. So this is like when they forgot their password, there's a flow where a user can invite a guest over to a calendar of theirs, and just a handful of other times that I need to send emails over to customers. And I'm doing this with the SendGrid API as my email provider. So far that's worked out really well for me. I'm not sending a high volume of emails at all, so I'm able to do this for free, which is really cool. Then I can also set up dynamic templates. So in a lot of these cases, I need to have dynamic variables that are set as query params on buttons that are inside of those emails. And so I'm able to inject those really easily and send these custom emails over to customers. All of the configuration on how the email looks and all that is within the SendGrid UI too. So I can kind of just like set up the template once and then reference that in my code and send these emails whenever I need to. I have this little bubble underneath it about customer support too, not necessarily through any APIs that my server exposes or anything like that, but I have a help bubble on my website that just says, hey, if you have any issues with the platform or any questions or anything like that, here is the customer support email. Please email it. A real human, myself, will get back to you in a timely fashion. I think I have like 24 business hours as my SLA. And this is really my goal with this application is I want to provide excellent customer support. This is how you get users that continue using your platform and recommend it to other folks. So I want to be on top of customer support as much as possible, and I want to be as accessible to customers as possible as well. Moving on, I also have an S3 service hooked up here. So the customers have the option to, when they're creating recipes, include an image of that recipe. So this just allows myself to store images and then retrieve them when I need them. The last major piece of this that I want to talk about in terms of APIs that my server exposes is in terms of payments. So I'm using Stripe as my payment processor. Stripe allows you to create these checkout events using a combination of client and server code that creates checkouts of products that you have inside of your Stripe account. And then whenever certain actions are taken within that checkout session, it will send asynchronous events that you can choose to listen to or not listen to, and then take some kind of action based off of that event. So for myself specifically, if we look over here, this is like the Stripe system itself, right? It allows me to accept payments, and when a payment is processed, like checkout session has like completely finished and gone through, then that sends an event, this checkout completed event, over to this webhook. Now this webhook is always listening, and you can define which events that it does something based off of. Like, so if it hears that a checkout was completed, it will take some sort of action. And in this case, the action that it takes is to call an endpoint on my server. And so I'm getting some information in terms of like that customer that just completed that event from this webhook event. With that information, I am able to provision access to the application. So I'm flipping a couple variables on the user object so that they are able to get into their account. They can see what kind of subscription type that they have, if it's either a lifetime or a monthly subscription, and then they're also able to get into the application. So I would say that these pieces are nothing crazy, but they are kind of the backbone of a lot of applications. Most applications will need a way for users to log into the application. Most applications will need a way for you as the application to interact and communicate with customers via email. There's very often image and photo requirements in applications, and if you want to accept payments, you'll need some kind of payment processor. So these are exciting to me because I built them once and they work well, and I'm like happy with how the integration has gone. And so now I can kind of just like cherry pick any of these pieces that I need in future applications and say like, oh, this is how I did it for this application, and now I can just pretty much repeat the process for any other applications that I'm building. So that is the back end out of the way, and moving on to the front end. It all starts with Figma. So I decided to create all of my Figma mocks myself. I'm definitely not a designer, but I think I did a decent job. I think in the future, this is definitely something that I will outsource because it was just kind of difficult for me. This is not my strong suit. But the reason that I have this linked all the way back up to the REST API section is the Figma document and mocks, for me, come first. So I want to kind of document and mock out how this application will work. What are the features of the application that I would like? And then from there, I'm able to design the APIs and the database schema based off of those user requirements. So that has been a really good flow for me, and I think it worked out really well for this application. And it's definitely a process that I will continue doing going forward. And that also reminds me that the order of how I built this thing is, again, Figma came first, then I built the backend, almost all the requirements that I needed for the backend APIs, and then I went over to the client and started implementing all of the UI features. So moving on to how I wrote my client-side code, this is all a React application with TypeScript. This is something that I've used throughout my entire career and will probably continue to use as long as I'm operating in some kind of full stack capacity. But yeah, this is all a React application and is a separate code base and a separate deployable than anything else so far. And the way that I am deploying that is on Netlify. And so Netlify is very similar, but it is more specific to client-side code. And so I am hosting this React application on Netlify for $0. Really cool about these platforms as well, like Netlify and Heroku, is they have built-in CI/CD. So I'm able to connect my GitHub repositories to these platforms, and whenever I push changes to the main branch, it'll kick off a build for me and do all of the deployment automatically. So that's really awesome for me in terms of just being an efficient developer. But yeah, that's essentially the entire application. Like I said, it's nothing too crazy, but a lot of these things are very necessary. I definitely didn't want to overcomplicate things. This is not a crazy complicated application, so I wanted to just take the bare bones, the bare necessities of what I needed and create an application out of that. So anyways, thanks a ton for watching. If you want to check out Dinnerbee, there is a link down below for it. I hope you found this video interesting and useful in terms of just what it all takes to build a web application and deploy it. Thank you again for watching. Really do appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.